What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex. In this video, I just gotta talk about Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I know I'm a week late. Watched the movie yesterday. Had to watch Lilo and Stitch with the family first the week before, but I got around to it, and I was really excited for this one, okay? And I do want to say, overall, was it the way I wanted it to go out? Not necessarily, okay? Did it have its unbelievable Mission Impossible moments? It did, okay? I watched so many of these films, rewatched them, I should say, leading into this one. I spent a good week, a couple weeks ago, just every single day I watched another Mission Impossible movie, and I never watched Dead Reckoning Part 1 at the time when it first came out, so I watched that. That movie got a lot of flack when it first came out, and I freaking loved it. I thought that movie rocked, and so going into this one, I heard that this is maybe the weakest of the franchise. I said, I don't want to believe it. Went to see it and want to just kind of, rant about it, give you guys my thoughts on it, because look, I do think the people were right, okay? I do think the audiences were correct in their assessment that this movie, I think, has such a strong back half. I think there is incredible moments. I think, even the beginning parts, I want to go into a little bit of spoilers. I think it's pretty hard not to do that. It had its moments. And I mean, at its peak, it's still peak, the biplane stunts and the underwater stuff and just some of even the character moments, I would say, towards the very end. Some incredible stuff. It took way too long. This is a long movie, right? I think 2.5, maybe even plus hours, and it took way too long to get there. Look, these movies, because again, rewatching them, you kind of have all of them in your mind, and so I might not remember which movie I'm talking about, but I think it was 4. One of them in kind of the middle group did take a while to get going. I remember thinking, oh man, this is 30, 40 minutes and we haven't gotten to that pace yet. But that is something. A couple of these movies have that issue where it takes a little bit to get going because, you'll have the debriefing, segment in the beginning. I do think it's 5 where it starts, with the gas tank thing. I think that is incredible, and that starts so freaking fast and just, it has a different kind of tone from it might actually be my favorite, to be honest with you, that or Fallout. But this movie takes so long to get going. Now, okay, I want to, we have to do spoilers because there is something kind of big, in that first half of the movie. So here we go. The Luther thing I think was done extremely well. The thing with this movie is sometimes they're introducing things that were not really, you don't really know why they put it in the way that they did. I think losing Rebecca Ferguson, obviously, in the last one, and that was because of her as an actress, right? She wanted to do work and she didn't want to sit on set for months and months. I thought, she said that in one of the interviews. So losing that character, which was one of the best characters, I think, in the franchise, and then replacing it with Haley Atwell's character of Grace. I like Grace, but it's the way that they had Ethan and her get attached, I thought was forced. The way that Luther all of a sudden has this massive sickness where it's all right, I think they did that because no matter what, you're going to lose him, right? No matter what happened with Gabriel, he's going to die regardless. His final mission is doing this poison pill, right? And that's kind of it. Maybe it was because of that, but I just felt okay, I don't really know why we had to jump there. And I mean, that was look, the Luther thing was the shining star in the first half of the movie. So much about the first half of the movie is, okay, we have an end goal. We need to get to the submarine. That's it. Now, we first need to kind of figure out where the submarine is. The way they find it is quite condensed. And I actually think that was an incredible moment, right? They split the team up, kind of. Ethan is in the submarine. He's getting attacked, right, by kind of a traitor with a knife, right? That was an awesome fight scene. And then you have the group, Benji and all of them, right? And they're in the cabin, in the Arctic or whatever, and they're solving their situation, right? And when they have those two fights kind of playing, over each other. That was awesome. That the whole point was, okay, this is that tense, okay, we have a 1 in a million chance of they need to get the coordinates and they need to send it to Ethan just at the right time. And it's the last time the submarine is going to peek out. All right, all that stuff is perfect. How they got there took an hour. Took more than an hour. I mean, firstly, they had to establish all of the great things that Ethan has done in the past. And I don't know, I can respect it to a degree. Other movies have done it, but it's we know how great these movies are. And I think that was a big issue that I saw from the fandom even before I watched this movie, where I was seeing people saying they don't know if this movie trusted us, as an audience. And that I would agree with, because so much of the exposition, the movies have had it. Luther tends to do it where, or I noticed in this movie, there was a couple times where they would almost say the exact same thing another character just said, right? I mean, they do the thing where they complete other people's sentences and stuff too. In case you don't catch like what they're going for, somebody will just kind of outright say it, right? Like what the end goal of like cutting the wire, somebody will outright say it at some point. You'll have to kind of follow them along. But this movie just had so much buildup of like, all right, Ethan needs to get caught, but first he doesn't want to get caught. Then he does get caught. And then when he does get caught, then he has to talk to the president. Then he has to go to this naval ship and he has to convince this person to take him to the submarine. Then he's got to get to the submarine and convince those people. And it's like, why? I mean, I guess I get why. I mean, you got to have to go through the chain of command, right? You can't jump from him on the run. The president's asking him to come in and, it's game over. You can't jump from that to all of a sudden him being in the submarine. But it took so long to get there. I mean, that's really the first hour and a half, right? You got the cool thing with Gabriel, when he captures them and Ethan, you think he bites down on his tooth. And that was like, oh my God, what are they doing? But, fake out, cool. Okay. That had a little bit of charm to it, right? It reminded me, I think 4 did the same thing, or maybe it was 5, when he's getting beat up and then Rebecca Ferguson's character obviously comes in to save him and all that jazz. So like it had some callbacks, which is actually kind of weird because then it doesn't make sense for Grace to be in it, but whatever. Okay. So it has those moments, but for the most part, besides Luther and besides that, the first hour and a half is just, okay, we need to get here, but in order to get here, we need to do like 5 other things first, and we need to kind of explain ourselves, as we go from scene to scene. And it's that over-explanation that the other movies have had it here and there, but it's never been to the issue and problem that it was in this movie. Like, that was a severe letdown because, it's a 2, again, such a long movie. And I was telling other people this. What I have liked about the balance, of the past movies is it's kind of had a bit of everything, right? It's got that story and emotional beats. It's got the characters. It's got, the race against the clock thing, which gets repetitive, but, it's got that element and you kind of need it. It's got the action. So action meaning, it's got like general Tom Cruise things, right, that are just awesome, but they're not to the highest level. Then you throw in like 1 or 2 of the highest level things in each of these movies, right? And that's generally how it goes. There's a balance. With this movie, I felt that everything relied on those 2 stunts. The underwater thing, which was incredible, okay? Incredible. And the issue is there's not even too much you can say about it because you're just like glued, right? You're watching as the submarine is turning. You're at least I am. I'm picturing like how in God's name he is doing these stunts like as they're filming it. But, it's so cool. It is so unbelievably cool. And the biplane, those are insane. Like him on the wings, and I saw a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, but I won't want to say like disservice, but that didn't even show like a tenth of the entire thing. Like he's freaking sitting on it, he's like scooting on the wings. It's unreal how that sequence plays out. And it's long. I mean, he has to freaking climb in the first plane. Then he's got the issues with the first plane. Then there's a chase or like an attack, I guess, between Gabriel and him. And then he has to abandon ship and get on Gabriel's. And it's like, it's long, it's so well done. The issue is I just feel like everything was on that. Like he had his signature running towards the beginning, with the Luther stuff. But like, even like I've talked a little bit about this in the past, like the martial arts types. I love that stuff. I'm a martial artist myself and all that. But like, I guess why I wanted to bring up the past movies, that balance I think was missing, because did it have a race against the clock? Yes. It kind of had that ultimate, nuclear threat. So it had it, but then they wanted to add like deception. Like, okay, somebody close to the president is going to betray her. That's this whole B plot that we don't really need because you have Ethan and then you have his team and they're for the most part separated. You got stuff going on with Benji, when he gets shot at the end, and I think there's too much going on that you just don't need some of it. Some of it factually you just don't need. So, I mean, but the balance I think was off probably because of that. I guess maybe I'm talking in circles because, when you focus on the president stuff or this or that, just explaining yourself every scene, then you don't have time to do the cooler stuff. Him and Grace getting almost tortured by Gabriel in the beginning. That was a nice little compact scene. And if you place that scene like 3 to 4 times throughout the movie, I think, you know what I mean? And I feel like the past movies have had that. Again, like when they're getting attacked in the cabin and they're trying to do the coordinates to Ethan, like that was so well done. And again, playing it with Ethan getting attacked. But that was really it. Like, that was the fight scene of the entire movie. Because then there's the 2 stunts. Like, that's literally, you had, like, the gun showdown, right outside the server room. But, like, actual, like, physical combat, there really was next to nothing. And that's that balance, because I feel like they just relied so much on the submarine and on the planes that was it. That carried the, again, like, over-the-top, like, Tom Cruise-esque things with the movie. But normally, you have something that's, not as insane. Like, again, I'll give it to them. Those were insane. I'm sure those took years to figure out and actually do. And then actually, like, filming it probably also took months, right? That probably took a good chunk of time. So I get it. But then it's like, it's almost the Thanos thing, right? Where it's like, well, what did you sacrifice to get that? Like, you got that. And you got some of the most incredible, like, that plane thing, I think is going to go down in history. Okay, how many other actors will do it? So, like, I will give them major props. But what did you have to lose or sacrifice in order to get that? Maybe not like the line is everything, right? Probably not everything, but you gave up a good amount of, like, pacing and like the balance I keep saying. You gave that up to do that. So I think that was the big, issue with the movie. And then on top of, the closure thing, like, he still technically has the entity. It was captured, and I guess they decided, like, the path was that he will just have it, so they're not destroying it, so I guess the world's okay, but he has it. So in terms of this being, like, the last one, I mean, they all go their own way. He's technically got kind of, like, this new-ish team, and he still has it. So it's like, it doesn't feel as final as I thought. I was thinking, like, months ago, okay, when the movie came out, like, I was not really spoiled. I didn't know Luther was going to go, in that way. I kind of sensed, like, they're going to have to kill somebody. But I also thought, like, well, maybe they can do something with Ethan where it's like, this is very definitive, maybe not kill him, but almost do like a Dark Knight Rises thing, right? Where people think he's dead, and then he just kind of appears, literally Dark Knight Rises, right? And they didn't even do that. This movie felt like it was just the completion of any of the other movies, and where you could bring it back. And I guess, so, like, the term, the final reckoning, like, they did say that it had that kind of, and I think it was the stakes, right? The stakes felt final, where it's like, it doesn't really get that high stakes again. You can't really continue to go up from that point. So, like, maybe that's what it was, but to kind of, like, definitively like, I see a lot of articles saying, like, oh, they closed it, and it's like, well, you can close it at any time. You can imagine it being closed. Any of these movies could have been an end for Ethan, and if you didn't make another movie, it would have been fine. That's kind of the point, because you're doing an impossible mission. You complete it, it could end right there. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, from that perspective, it's like, well, any of these movies could have done it, and I would believe it, and I believe it here too. But then it's like, but how final was it really? It wasn't as final as I thought it was. So I don't know. It's I love this franchise, like, if you can't tell. Like, I really do. I respect it so much. I respect, the work that Tom Cruise puts in, and everybody. I think there's a lot, and again, like, Benji, Simon Pegg, I think, does a really good job. There's a lot of good acting, in this. Gabriel wasn't as scary. One thing I've really liked is how intimidating, and they've done it quite well, I would say, really. 3 onward, a lot of the villains have been just so unbelievably good. They did the bringing back the same one for 5 and 6, right? So, like, there was a lot of, they've done some really cool stuff. Gabriel, he didn't seem as in control, in this one as he did in the last one, and maybe that's because of him getting kicked out of the entity's good graces and stuff they talked about, but I even felt that, like, the villain in this movie was not even really it was. The entity was taking over the nukes. But really, because it's like AI, right? Like, it's this fabricated thing. The villain was the time limit. The villain was, okay, when the clock stops, all these nukes are taken over, and then they're all just going to launch and blow up the entire world. The villain was the end of the world. I really didn't even feel like it was the entity, and I really, really didn't feel like it was Gabriel. See, in the last one, especially with a certain character being killed off, again, I think that threw a lot of things in flux. By doing that, I think Gabriel really established himself as, like, okay, he's scary and he's powerful, and he didn't really have that as much, in this movie. So I think that was another issue. I mean, there was a lot of issues. This movie, like, I enjoyed it, and I'm sure I'll watch it again. And I wouldn't say it was a bad movie. I think it was don't want to say it was a bad Mission Impossible. It was definitely like a subpar or average Mission Impossible film. I do think it was probably one of, if not the weakest of the entire franchise. It didn't strike that right balance. But when it was at its best, it was at its best. Even like Ethan running in and talking to Luther, as they, or at the very end, well, when Luther leaves the voice recording for him, beautiful. Like there is a lot of beautiful moments sprinkled in. Definitely, absolutely. I just think things were like thrown out of whack. Specifically, I've talked about the Grace character. Like I like her. She also kind of felt different in this one than she felt in the last one, and even in that one, it kind of just felt weird about how quickly he was replacing one girl with the next. Some of these things just didn't feel right, and I think it was, some of it was the decision making of actors and all this stuff, and just kind of what you had to do to make it work. So I get it. You have to do what you have to do, but not what I would have wanted. It was glorious in certain ways, in certain pieces of the film. It was glorious, but it was definitely messy, and it was definitely I would have done it differently, I guess, myself. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.